going to do a quick shuffle here. But while I shuffle, I'll just tell you, I practiced in an empty room, and it's a lot more fun talking to real people. So this has been awesome already. And it's just neat to see how God just brings it's just neat. So I'm encouraged. All right. Well, I'm going to ruin this stage here real quick. My Hawaiian rolls. So, I always thought that I had a pretty good understanding of daily bread. You wake up in the morning and you read the Bible, get fed, get God's provision for the day, and then just kind of bringing my needs to Him. Maybe I need patience for a client, or strength for a difficult conversation. A lot of the time, maybe I need just peace about something going on that day. Maybe it's a doctor's appointment. Maybe I just need literally energy for the day. But often it's easy for my mind to kind of start to jump ahead, and then I'm thinking about next month and that unexpected car expense that we need to pay for, and start thinking about my health, and what if it's still looking like this a year from now? What am I gonna do? What if I can't have kids? And oh my goodness, if I do have kids, how am I raised in a world like this? And how am I gonna pay for college? I just got done paying for mine, and what if my husband starts hating me or something? Or, I don't know. I just don't really think that I can handle this day and this economy, and all of a sudden, it's pretty hard to carry today's burdens when I'm busy with tomorrow's. I'll probably be volunteering to sweep up the porch. I promise it'll get cleaned up. Does any of this sound familiar? Have you ever just fill your arms and your mind with tomorrow? Am I still on? Can you hear me? Okay, good. So, my point is, we can't carry today well when we're overwhelmed with tomorrow's burdens. So this is a very simple concept, and we're going to stretch it out, so this will be fun. But open your Bible to Exodus chapter 16. And again, I'm probably not going to share something that you've never heard before. We're going to be picking up to the Israelites in the wilderness. And so, if you jump down, so Exodus in chapter 16, and then we'll be in verse 14. It says, "And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, 'What is it?' For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, 'It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded you. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall each take an omer, according to the number of persons that each of you have in his tent.' And the people of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, 'Let no one leave any of it over until the morning.' But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat, but when the sun grew hot, it melted." And what I want to talk to you about today is living with what I've coined a manna mindset. And it's really this simple idea, but the manna mindset is basically this concept pulled from the Israelites. And as they were in the wilderness, God provided manna for each day. It was their daily provision. But if they took tomorrow's manna, by the time they woke up tomorrow, it stank, it had bred worms, it had gone bad. So instead, they couldn't hoard tomorrow's resources. They just had to live day by day with what God provided for that day. And the same, I believe, is true for us. It carries over. We don't get tomorrow's grace today. but instead God gives us new morning mercies and daily provision for exactly what we need each day. So I believe we have, quite simply, just the grace that we need for today. You don't actually have tomorrow's grace today. When we start thinking about car repair for next month or X, Y, Z, all of these things, how will I handle it if I'm still in this situation at X time? We are doing that, first of all, in our own strength. And second of all, it's because we don't have God's mercy and grace for tomorrow until it's tomorrow. This is from Matthew 6, verse 34. It says, "So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today." Lamentations, we know, talks about his mercies being new every morning. We weren't actually designed to take on tomorrow, today. Often, when we do this, instead of provision, we get some kind of perversion. I actually attempted to, where'd it go? I attempted to mold a piece of bread, but turns out there's a lot of preservatives in today's bread. So if you look really closely, there's a little bit of mold on here. But we're left with this stinky thing that takes up space. And instead of having this provision that we get to land on, we are filling up our mind with things that really kind of stink. The cool thing is, though, tomorrow, when you get to tomorrow and those needs that you were thinking about, they're actually active, you'll have all that you need. And a year from now, if your health still looks like it does, or your situation still looks like it does, you'll have the grace you need for that day. And 10 years from now, you'll have the grace you need for whatever comes your way in 10 years. And I've learned that so many times because, specifically in chronic pain, there are times where, I couldn't look to the future. It is a grace of the Lord that we don't actually know what the future holds. I didn't have the strength to know how many years I was going to be in a really hard battle. And yet, I also didn't know that I would be years into it with hope intact. And that's because it's day by day as God provides for each moment. So we trust God for the provision that we can't yet see. There's a quote from Corrie ten Boom. So if you're familiar with her, she was living in Holland during the Holocaust, and her family actually hid Jews. So they weren't Jews themselves, but they were hiding Jews, and they got caught and ended up going to a concentration camp. And there's a quote that I love. Hopefully you can see that, but this is from her dad. So as they are headed to these concentration camps, they're worried about what's going to happen. It says, "Father sat down on the edge of the narrow bed. Corey, he grinned at me. When you and I go to Amsterdam, when do I give you your ticket? I sniffed a few times, considering this. Why, just before we get on the train. Exactly. And our wise Father in heaven knows when we're going to need things too. Don't run out ahead of him, Corey. When the time comes that some of us will have to die, you will look into your heart and find the strength you need, just in time." Amen. That's a heavy situation. I'm thankful that most of us aren't looking for this type of strength, the strength to go to a concentration camp or die a noble death. But I love this picture. Maybe we aren't riding trains as much these days, but if you're ever taking your 6-year-old on a flight, I can guarantee you're not handing that ticket over a month before the flight, right? When do you give them the ticket? Well, honestly, now you don't. You scan for them. But you give it to them right when they can handle it, only for as long as they can handle it, so they can hand it to the person and get on the flight, right? I think that is such a beautiful picture of in suffering. I almost say it's helpful to almost think of ourselves like a 6-year-old kid. And God is the one who has this whole vision But he just breaks it down into these small little steps and gives us what we need right in time. But what happens on the days when we try to just focus on today and we still come up weary? You know, I don't know all the situations in this room, but some of you may be thinking, Olivia, you know, sounds good, but like, I don't think I can trust God today. You know, I have a health situation and like, it's currently flaring. Like, I don't feel good as we speak. I don't have strength for this. Or someone may be saying, you know, I have bills due today and like, you should see my bank account. Like, it's not there. How do I have strength for today? Or someone else even saying, I have children walking away from the Lord currently, and I don't have it in my heart, the emotional capacity for this. You know, those are not easy things to bring up, but I'm sure there's situations like that. And the first thing I want to say is not what you would expect, but I actually agree with you. That you don't have the strength that you need. Which, great, right? Oh, came to a women's conference to get encouraged. Now I'm getting told that I don't have what I need. I think I'm going to leave. But before you leave, please stay. I think we've all probably heard it said, God will never give you more than you can handle. And I'm going to combat that a little bit. I won't get heretical on you. But Paul says, we do not want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia, for we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. 2 Corinthians 1:8. See, the truth is, there will be times when you're burdened beyond your strength, or you might despair of life itself. But the promise, and where this quote comes from, I think it's always given in good intention. But God does give us more than we can handle. But the promise is that He never gives us more than He can handle. Amen. You know, there's 3 truths that have helped me in the deepest moments of overwhelm. And I think that maybe this is a bit better way of thinking than that God won't give us more than we can handle. The first truth is that apart from Him, we can do nothing. John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. But then, where I think this concept has come from, we know that, 2, He always provides a way of escape and endurance. 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, He will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. But when you see that, it's not really about us. It's about God is faithful. He won't let you be tempted. He will provide a way of escape. It's about Him. And then, when we know that it's not about us, apart from Him we can do nothing, He's always going to provide this way of escape and endurance. And then, we can remember that He is glorified in our weakness. That's number 3. 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. But I want to stay here for a minute, because how can God be glorified in a weakness that nobody knows exists? You know, I feel like in the American church, sometimes we're so busy trying to look like we just have it all together. And what if God wants to teach a member of your church generosity by their financial contribution to your need? Or maybe while you're busy trying to pretend your chronic illness doesn't exist, there's a little girl looking up to you, longing for your mentorship and experience in her pain. Maybe you wish you would have done things differently with your kids growing up, but your humble repentance would mean far more to them than a regret that leaves you distant. You know, we don't live in weakness very often, but I think God uses our weakness when we open it up to him. And it's not this victim mentality, but it's a humble realization that we don't have what we need, and we even need each other as a church and as believers. So these are the three truths again. Apart from him, we can do nothing. He always provides a way of escape and endurance, and he is glorified in our weakness. But believe me, I do get it. Sometimes these truths still don't feel like enough. I have had those days that are unconsolable, and I've known, times where I want to have peace, but I just don't know how I'm going to have peace until I understand how God's going to solve it. And I wish I could get around this, but no matter what trial it is in my life, I feel like God just continues to remind me that there is going to be a level of mystery in the Christian life. And we have to embrace it. We actually have to live out Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That leaning not is a lot easier said than done. I'm sure you can relate. But you never know with God. That's the thing about being a believer, is that even when the world has run out of hope, we have it. We have an ace up our sleeve. You never know when you cast your net in the other side of the boat, and all of a sudden it fills with fish. Or when being sold into slavery is actually the first step on a career ladder that all the way ends up with you being second in command of all of Egypt. You never know when you see an ocean, but he sees a Red Sea road. I laughed when you brought that up earlier during worship. But one of my favorite verses is in Psalm 77. Your way was through the sea, your path through the great waters, yet your footprints were unseen. I love that idea that you probably already heard me say it today, but I love that God is infinitely more creative than we are. I've seen him answer prayers I didn't know how to pray. I want to give him that open, but he already has a way of escape that I may not even be seeing. But while I'm a very whimsical person in most of my life, I get really practical in pain. All of a sudden, I don't want the fluff. Give me the answers. How do I get through this? So some very practical advice from someone who has had some very, very hard days. What do we do when we feel so overwhelmed and we just don't know how it's going to handle it? First thing I want to share is simply do the next thing. I shared this idea of feeling like a 6-year-old kid when you're struggling. One of my friends, she lives in South Africa, and her dad, a few years ago, was going through very intense cancer. He actually is doing far better now, but there was a season where they thought they were going to lose him. And she wrote me this in an email. She said, in the really bad days, this is what I would do. I would wake up each morning and focus only on breathing through that day. If one day at a time was even too much, I would take 1 hour at a time. If 1 hour at a time seemed too much, I would take 5 minutes at a time and just do what seemed right for those 5 minutes. If 5 minutes was too much, I would decide what to do in the next few seconds or in the very next moment. Make a cup of coffee, perhaps, get dressed, or walk to the door and open it. That, Liv, is how I got through the terrible moments when the future scared me more than I can put into words. Don't look to the future. Don't look to tomorrow. Don't look to the past. Don't look at someone else's life. Definitely don't do that. But do look to Jesus. Grab his hands and take the very next practical step. It could be doing the dishes. It could be going for a walk, taking a nap, getting in your car, going to work, sending an email, writing a friend who's hurting. So simple. But I think many of us know that paralyzed feeling of overwhelm where you just kind of get stuck and you lock up. And there's just something beautiful about the simplicity of this idea. C.S. Lewis, well, before I put it on, let me preface. If you're not familiar, there's a quote from the Screw Tape Letters And the backstory of this book, it's a fictional take, but basically he's writing from the perspective of a demon, like an uncle demon, who is training his nephew demon how to keep a man from the Lord. So this is a Christian author, right? But it's going to feel backwards. So when I share this quote, the enemy is actually God, okay? Here's what it says. The humans live in time, but our enemy destines them to eternity. He, therefore, I believe, wants them to attend chiefly to two things: to eternity itself, and to that point of time which they call the present. For the present is the point at which time touches eternity. He would therefore have them continually concerned either with eternity, which means being concerned with him, or with the present, either meditating on their eternal union with, or separation from himself, or else obeying the present voice of conscience, bearing the present cross, receiving the present grace, giving thanks for the present pleasure. I know it's kind of wordy, but basically the idea here is that our minds are best spent on all the way, not just the future, but all the way to eternity. We're just in the present, which is actually the point in which time intersects with eternity.
I know.
And yeah, it's a crazy concept. It's so neat. But often we get stuck somewhere else, right? We go to the past, and don't get me wrong, there's a reflection on the past that is healthy and necessary. And then the future, of course, we have to plan for the future. There's a level of preparation and vision that's good. But it's when we live in those extremes that we lose out, and we're not living where God really has us living, which is right where our feet are. So I love that idea. And my second super practical piece of advice is to take time to rest. I love Psalm 127, 1 through 2. It's become an anthem in almost every area of my life. It says, unless the Lord builds the house, the work is in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil. For the Lord gives to his beloved sleep. And I love it because it's saying, those who build the house, they're still building the house. But unless God does it, they're laboring in vain. The watchmen are still staying awake at night. But unless God's there with them, it's in vain. So it doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility and a role to play in our life, but it takes the pressure off of us. There's two things just on like a very practical level, again, like keep being on this level. But one is to think about, do you sleep? Like physically, I sound like my mom here, but like, are you sleeping? In pain, it's easy to actually have physical exhaustion become emotional exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion. I had a pastor tell me once, the godliest thing you can do is take a nap. Sometimes. But sometimes it really is true. And so I would just jot that down as something to think about, on the really hard days. 30 minutes of rest might change your life. You never know. And secondly, we won't sit on this, but as you're journaling or reflecting on the weekend, maybe think about, have you ever sat down to think about what Sabbath and just rest in general look like in your life? Are there some rhythms? Are there some ways that you are not running yourself ragged, trying to do all the things, be all the things, and kind of missing out on your spiritual health? So, again, this is such a simple message, and I'm not gonna land here much longer, but I actually just want to end with a hymn. It's called Day by Day, and you may be familiar, may not. I'm just gonna play a video of it, and it's gonna have the lyrics on the screen. And I just think the words are so rich. So just sit in these and think about what this means for us.
Takes the moments fleeting till I reach the promised land.
Alright, well, I love that song, and I hope that it encouraged you. But I just thought for the last little bit, we have a little bit of time before we eat. So we're just going to take a few minutes to kind of reflect and meditate. I know you all have a journal, so you're welcome to journal, to pray. Kind of use this time as you want, but sometimes it's easy to just move on to lunch really quick and kind of not soak it in. So I know that I think Denise or Jenny is going to come release us for lunch soon. But in the meantime, you just want to take a few quiet minutes. I put some prompts up there, but you don't have to use them. It's up to you. So that's what we're doing. Thanks, guys.